It's showtime.
This is it. This is the answer. It says here that a bolt of lightning is going to strike the clock tower at precisely 10:04 p.m. next Saturday night. If we could somehow harness this lightning, channel it into the flux capacitor, it just might work. Next Saturday night, we're sending you back to the future.
Psychically, I'm very well endowed.
I want to know what you're thinking. There are some things you can't hide. I want to know what you're feeling. Tell me what's on your mind.
Hey there! Welcome to the show. This is Koepp from Telepathic Bunny Comics. So welcome to What's Next, episode 18, Back to the Future. All right. Tonight we're going to have on one of my favorite people, also one of my favorite showrunners, and a guy who happens to be a good friend of mine, named John's Longbox. Before I embarrass him too much further, there we go.
Hey, how you doing, Koepp? How's everything?
Hey! Good to see you. Good to see you.
That's it. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. I've got your campaign pinned to the chat. So
Thank you.
Anybody wants to click on that. Also, down in the description, I got your YouTube channel, and I highly suggest anybody that doesn't currently have you subscribed that they need to check that out.
Thanks.
So we're getting all the bases covered here tonight. All right. Anyway, let's see who we got over here. Edwin the Ace, Hell Peeps, what's up? And Hell John and Bunny, Marcus Killigrew. Hey man, good to see you. Good to see you. Hiya Chat Gray Wolf. And let's see. Here we go. Is John talking to his past self? We're actually about the same age, believe it or not.
Yeah. I was never that handsome.
Yeah, well, I happen to dye my beard, so I'm cheating a little bit. Anyway, which stream should I watch? Watch whichever one you want to watch.
Koepp said I could stream this to my channel too, so
absolutely. I actually
watch
I gave him the link early.
You love best.
Yeah, right. There you go. I gave him the link early, so he could do that. So anyway, you're confusing me. Well, I'm sorry, Marcus. How about you just view it on the Bunny channel, because I don't have as many subs as he does.
Yeah,
so
watch it. Watch it on Koepp's channel.
World's your oyster. All right. Well, what this whole entire show is about is I like to look to the future, look for future trends, look for things that are coming. We dwelt so much on what's going away. And that I'd like to do something different. And the way I figured to do something different is to look for trends, to look for what's coming up, what's where people are headed, where everything is headed. I'm not the culture is dying. Okay, we all agree on that. But the counterculture is thriving, getting stronger, and eventually it's going to be the culture. And so I want to pay attention to that.
So let's keep the Taurus out this time.
There you go. Right. Well, the thing about it is, though, is it seems a little odd. It's like, well, wait a second, you're talking about like retro style comics. How is that a future trend? Well, the way I describe that is that I think that a return to the heroism that comics formerly, espoused is the way that we can move the medium move the medium forward. It's like we lost our way sometime around Watchmen, and we kind of forgotten that once you deconstruct that hero, you need to build them back up. And so tonight I have on a guy who has probably one of the best like classic looking comics that is coming out right now, Heroic Tales. And basically, like you said, we made a wrong turn somewhere, and so the way forward is to go back. Anytime you get lost, what do? You backtrack.
Oh, it's like a computer. Reset to what's the phrase that's escaping my mind? Reset to
the default settings. Yeah.
Last known good. That's
last known good. Right.
Yeah.
And so when was comics thriving? When did we know? When was people flocking to the comic shops? When were things good? They were good when people knew who the heroes were, and they were invested in those characters because they were good people and want to see good things happen to them, or we were invested in their future, we were invested in their welfare and that of their families and that of the extended group that they were part of, and something, if everybody's so nihilistic that you can't hold on to anything good about them, then why would you invest money into keeping up with their travels? Would you agree with that, John?
Yeah.
So you obviously have an encyclopedic knowledge of the medium, based on what's over your shoulder there. And so I just wanted to pick your brain.
Sure.
What do you see out there right now that's like you think is kind of retro and going backwards to go forward?
It's funny because I stopped paying attention to everything a couple of years ago. Like I'm in a bubble, and I fully admit it, and I want to be in a bubble. Like when I talk to a bunch of the people that I made friends with on YouTube, like you guys and Matt and everybody, they'll reference stuff that's going on, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on, so you guys have to explain this to me, because I kind of got fed up and disgusted, and I figured the only way to stop complaining and being miserable all the time was to just not engage. So as mean as this sounds, COVID was a wake up. I talk about COVID a lot. It was a wake up call. I realized that people are easily led and easily bickering and easily fighting, and that scared people do nasty things. Mm-hmm. And in a way, it gave me like psychic armor. Mm-hmm. So like when I saw people that would just like, this is going to sound all new agey and everything like that, and that's the last thing I am. But I just saw like a lot of negative people. I was just like Luke with the lightsaber. I was
right.
And I cut out 2015 pre-COVID. I cut out most comics. Mm-hmm. I stopped watching most TV, and I've been living like a Mike Brady lifestyle. Just me. My wife started watching a Little House on the Prairie again. We started watching like Family Matters and Quarter Get, like just all wholesome stuff. And I gotta say, I've been happier. I've been losing weight. You know what I mean? Because when you're miserable all the time, you just eat your feelings.
Yeah.
And just been happy. I've even been saving money because I'm not buying and all the crap that you're supposed to. And I was like, like when I say I'm losing weight, I physically losing weight, and I also feel like emotionally, like, nothing's really bothering me. So long-winded answer to your question is, I think there's and I was surprised when I started my channel because I thought I was the only weirdo.
Yeah.
I got onto Richard C. Meyer, almost at the beginning.
Mm-hmm. He's the entry drug. He was mine too. Yeah.
Yeah. it was really good to know that there was at least one other person, and then he boomed. And I'm like, there's a whole bunch of people. So I started my channel very slow, very frustrating, like very discouraging. I was going to stop I had like for a full year, I had less than 100 subs. I was making videos every day, and and I was like, I got to keep doing it. And then all of a sudden, I don't want to say I was booming, but all of a sudden people started to recognize me, and then it became fun and worth it. And I started realizing a lot of people feel the same way I do. Yeah. So I just wanted to, I've always wanted to make a comic, and I want to kind of, what am I going through? There's no use in being miserable all the time. No use in complaining all the time. No use, so I was like, I'm going to make a comic book that reminds other people, maybe I'm being naive, but we're comic book people. We're dreamers by nature.
Yeah, we are.
Like I want to make a comic book that somebody, I hope younger than me, because people older than me know this. Right. Could read this comic book and be like, this is the way it used to be. It used to be fun. Used to be cheerful. Like, it wasn't deconstructed. The heroes were good because they were good. I have no problems with the sympathetic villain, but that's not the end all be all. Like, the villains have to be interesting. No. Like, because there's two villains in my first comic, and neither one of them are sympathetic. Right. One of them has a mental illness where he whatever. We'll get into that. But the other one is just a son of a bitch. There's nothing sympathetic about it at all. Right. And actually, I just realized there's three villains, and the last villain, oh my God. Yeah. If you're sympathetic to him, then you should go just check yourself into it. Yeah. But anyway, what I'm saying is I want the good guys to be good guys. And I realize in retrospect, like the damage of this, like Dark Knight Returns and The Watchmen, I've always loved The Watchmen. Yeah. But Dark Knight Returns always bothered me. And I didn't figure it out until just recently. People have been inviting me on their channels, and we've been having really wonderful, deep conversations about comics. And it really made me think it out why I didn't like Dark Knight Returns, because those were classic superheroes. That was Batman and Superman. Yeah. And they were tearing apart. Those weren't Frank Miller's characters, right. And those were, that was Superman. That was the government stooge. That was the greatest superhero of all time. Like, he's the inspiration for the patriarch, my character. Yeah. So I love Superman, but so that always bothered me. I couldn't explain it. The Watchmen, those are his characters. Do whatever you want with that. I respect that. You want to torture your
well, they were actually Ditko's Charlton,
right? But they're not. Yes, they are, but they're not. But they're not. Right. On DC's part, if you ask me. Yeah, I thought DC did the right thing by because for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, they were originally going to be the Charlton characters. Like the Watchmen was going to be the Question, Dr. Manhattan was going to be Captain. I'm so grateful that DC intervened and stopped.
Well, Watchmen initially was going to wind up being a basically Frank Alan taking a shot at Ditko. He had this axe to grind against Ditko, and that basically what Watchmen was like a hate letter to Ditko, basically.
And it turned out that just like Archie Bunker was supposed to be the bad guy, and everybody loved Archie Bunker. Shows you how when you live in a bubble, which I admittedly live in a bubble right now. My bubble is my wife and I. It's a small bubble, but I still love Alan Moore, warts and all. I feel
he's brilliant. He's an absolute brilliant writer.
He gave me decades of wonderful comics that I still reread. His Swamp Thing can't be beat. From Hell has given me a 20-year fascination with Jack the Ripper. But I think he just likes to be contrary to what anybody, if everybody in the world says it's blue, he's going to say it's red, even though he knows it's blue. And that he knows it's blue. He's going to say it's red. That's the way he is. Well, Marcus is Tom Strong. I forgot Tom Strong was one of the best comics that came out. I could list Cigarette Purgatory. I could go on and on and on about Alan Moore's comics.
Having good character interactions helps, well as decent people to root for. Right. Agreed. I come in here and you're talking about entry drugs. What's happened to this channel? Check the context. Anyway,
it's all about context.
It's all about context. I've been watching Rockford Files.
I just started watching the Rockford. My dad watched it. Yeah. but I never paid attention. So I started with the first episode. Man, what a great theme song.
You just cannot go wrong. He's the everyman hero. He's the most quintessential everyman hero.
If you put a beard on Jim Rockford and beef him up, that's pretty much the
patriarch. There you go. First deconstruction could be interesting, but the 100th not so much.
Correct.
Great.
It's draining. Yep. It's like sandpaper. You know, sooner or later you're gonna wear away the muscle and the bone.
Yeah. Well, and I think that the problem is not in the deconstruction. The deconstruction, you know, there was things that some tropes that really needed to be kind of punctured at the time. Okay. Because you always have to go back. It's like the Bible, you know, you always have to go back to when it was written and what was true of that time. Something called exegesis. Okay. But when you do an exegesis on something, the first thing you start with was when was it written and why? Why it was, you know, what was the frame of mind of why this was written? And Watchmen was written because Alan Moore saw the stagnation of what he saw stagnation in the comics, because the tropes had kind of weighed comics down. And so he wrote this basically to break a lot of the tropes that in a lot of those he believed was, you know, Steve Ditko's, you know, doing. But the problem was Alan knew what he was doing.
And he's intelligent and he's smart.
He's intelligent and he's smart. And he understood what he was doing. And then if you look at the end of it, they always miss this at the end. But at the end of it, he completely, totally erased everything by letting it leak out. You know, by sending Rorschach's journal to this frontiersman paper. You know, he kind of guaranteed that this whole entire scheme would come out. Okay. And that was like Alan.
And he also showed that Rorschach was the only real hero in the comic.
Exactly. Because Rorschach is the only one that understood.
Who stood up for himself. The truth is all that matters, you know.
Right.
You know, and then Rorschach was the one that I even as a kid reading it or a young adult, I fell in love with Rorschach. First, fascinating character, one of the most fascinating. And then he was the only one to root for it. Like you couldn't root for the comedian. You wanted to root for the Night Owl, but he just didn't have the
backbone. He didn't have backbone.
The good word. No. You know, and of course you like Dr. Manhattan, but Dr. Manhattan was just beyond humanity. You know, just you know, the original Night Owl I rooted for. You know, but he was you know, old and past his prime. But it was really brilliant. And this was a guy that Alan Moore is I don't even want to say liberal or progressive, because who really knows what this guy thinks? But he's more on the left. Let's just say he's more on the left.
Moore's Alan Moore.
Right. Yeah. So but he wrote what he thought was a right-wing character, but he's fair. He did his research and he made the character true to the character. You know, he didn't just make a caricature, and he didn't make a straw man to attack, which is what, you know, when people talk about comics are always political, you know, which I have a, you know, it's funny because not you got me running around in circles, but you're a very thoughtful person. You always give me good stuff to make me think. But I think I went full circle and then full circle again when people started saying comics were always political. Remind me, we'll get back to that later if you don't mind.
Right. No
but but that's Alan Moore made a political comic, but he treated every character with respect and let them develop on their own. You know, so and I honestly think that Alan Moore was surprised that people loved Rorschach as much as he did. And if you take the Watchmen out of that Cold War era, it really doesn't make sense. Like that's why I didn't want to watch the Watchmen TV show. You know, what did it have to do with the Tulsa, you know, Wall Street bombing?
Everybody that I've looked after that saw it said pass, skip it.
Yeah, I remember the commercial came out. My friend Jeff and I were playing a game and it was on the TV, and he got all excited. He goes, "Oh my God!" He was like, "Do you see this?" And I said, "You know, I 2 seconds into the commercial, I said the bad guys are going to be the Rorschach people who are all alt-right Nazis, you know. And he was like, "You think so?" I was like, "Guarantee."
Oh, guarantee it. Yeah.
But anyway, yeah.
Yeah, you knew exactly what they were going to do with it as soon as you saw it.
And then it had something to do with one of the guys from Lost, J.J. Area. I
Damon Lindelof, I think, is J.J.
Yeah, Damon
Abrams.
Lindelof. He was the one from Lost. You know, if I see that guy, you know, I'll let the whole I'm waiting for House of Dragons. You get the Game of Thrones burnt me once. I'll wait till that show is done, and then if I hear it ended well, I'll watch it. You know, like what's his name has a lot of credit with me. The guy who did Breaking Bad. Yeah, he did a brilliant show. Why can't I think of his name? But he did a brilliant show and it ended perfectly. You know, so excuse me,
Brian Fuller. Was it Brian Fuller? Is his name?
No, Gilligan.
Oh, Zach. Yeah, Galligan. Yeah, I got you.
What's his name? The guy who did Breaking Bad. Something Gilligan, something. I don't know. I can't remember.
Yeah, it's something like that. 1 second.
Excuse me. Now I got the hiccups.
Well.
Oh, but what I was saying about comics have always been political, and then people bring up the example
Vince Gilligan.
Vince Gilligan, yes.
Yeah.
People always bring up Captain America punching Hitler, or Superman throwing crooked landlords into jail and beating up wife beaters, and then I was like, yeah, they're right. And then I started thinking, you know what? They're confusing, and we all do it, and I still do it, even now that I've become aware.
Uh-oh. Did we lose you?
Yeah. See, I'm being censored right here. I came to Secret of the Universe. No, I realized that we're confusing populism with politics.
Yeah.
Who likes crooked landlords? Who likes wife beaters?
Nobody.
Who likes Hitler?
Nobody.
You know what I mean? So this is just populism.
Well, I heard a great explanation for populism. Winston, the guy that used to be the bass player for the Mumford & Sons, he did a debate with Nancy Pelosi, and he said that he should have
threw a bucket of water on her and she would have melted.
Yeah, exactly. But he said populism is the everyday man's reaction to the elitist control, and so I think it was a great description of it, because populism is something.
How did the bass player from Mumford & Son end up in a debate with Nancy Pelosi?
Well, he kind of got canceled out, and they threw him out of the group, because he had
because he actually said something nice about Trump. All I could think of is that that Mel Brooks movie, The History of the World.
Right.
They threw the guy in jail. What did he do? He said the poor ain't so bad.
Right, exactly.
He said Trump ain't so bad. Put him in the dungeons.
Right. I saw the EVS played it last night. Yeah, but he basically just said that populism isn't anti-democratic. Populism is the very nature of democracy. Yeah, in that
it's the people.
It's the people deciding their own fate, and so that's not political. That's the people the people have their best interest at heart.
Who likes crooked landlords? Superman beating up crooked landlords,
right?
Oh, you know what? That's the Republicans love crooked landlords. That's what an immature person creates a straw man and then thinks they're so smart. That's like, the first year philosophy student.
Well, if you look at the demographics, majority of the people in the upper incomes are Democrat now. That switched. That switched around the era of Clinton, when Clinton made all those changes. That the richer people started gravitating towards the Democratic side, and so they switched.
All the businesses and banks are all,
Yeah.
Like I was arguing with my brother, and he's like, the Republicans. I don't. If you don't want me to get political on your channel, just say. But
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
The Republicans control all the businesses. I said, name a business that doesn't have a DEI. Program. I said, that's not a Republican thing.
No.
I said, where is Wall Street located? In the middle of Manhattan.
Right.
Where is Manhattan? You can't throw a rock and hit a Republican.
The .com bubble. Yep. It's exactly. So basically, when you could look at what comics used to be, okay, when you talk about populism, the comics used to be like a populist dream, okay?
Right, because they were made by blue-collar workers with wives and kids and mortgages who would commute to work, and
most of them were veterans.
Name all the original guys. These guys fought in the war. Came home. They great stories of work it, and it's 5 o'clock. They literally put their pencils down. You know what I mean? They had this work ethic. And now you got fat guys like Dan Slott playing video games all day long and can't turn in one script for a comic book.
But then blaming the fans for the fact that he's not being productive. So the
fans were sticking yodels down his throat.
Oh, exactly. But the thing about it is what you're seeing now is a populist revolt against these companies. The mainstream has become has become the man, and everything outside of these companies, that this whole independent space is basically a populist revolt. Which is, if you look at the way culture churns, what happens is, something happens. It was counterculture, and it becomes the culture. And then because they allowed it to become the culture, the biggest business entities start taking it over, and then they start changing it into something that it was not meant to be, to chase the dollar. And then once it stops becoming what the fans loved about it, they start drifting away from it, and then there's a revolt. Then they start making their pop culture that they love. And then that is such good and such purity that it basically supplants what was killed by becoming mainstream. And so it's a constant churn. And what you're seeing now is a populist revolt. That's the beginning of that churn. But what happens usually is something older that predates what became mainstream becomes vogue again. And then they start, so basically they go back to what was good before it became mainstream, and then they go from there. And so what happens is, what starts the revolt is a back to basics. Would you agree to that?
Yeah. Like you said, back to less known good.
Yep.
Which brings this conversation full circle back to that's why I'm making Heroic Tales, the comic that I want. I would really like to see if my nieces and nephews get a copy and they get excited, put on a towel around their neck and run around. So that's why it's all ages, but there's a difference between kids and all ages comics. Renzo draws some sexy women, you know what I mean? So
there you go. Comics have the empowered every man saved the day while the system or elites failed. Grant. Most of the creators back then were Democrats, but not activists, right? They were liberal. They weren't liberals,
Classic liberal. Yeah, I confuse people at work when I tell them I'm a classic liberal, and they're like, "I thought you were lean conservative." I said, "No." I said, classic liberal always had the same freedom of speech, freedom of expression,
Right.
I said, it's just the left went so far wacky that it's the same thing that all these commie kids call the Nazis right wing. It's like, dude, you guys are so far left that the Nazis are right wing to you, but to everybody else, they're left.
By the way, Nazi stands for Nationalist Socialist Party, Workers' Party.
I just got this video demonetized on both our channels, huh?
Yeah, well, it is what it is. But the thing about it is, though, is what's really fascinating about your book in particular is the fact that the patriarch is the last character that would get made today.
Yeah,
he is absolutely that. He's like the antithesis of what would be made today.
Yep. He's everything that is bad.
He's white. He's male. He's middle-aged, and
straight.
He's straight. He's a family man.
He loves his family. He's religious. I kind of feel like a charlatan because I'm not particularly religious. I'm not anti-religious. But actually, my wife is getting baptized tomorrow. We're going to spend the day in the church. But you know, I do see the value in a structure and religious guides. Like, you know, let me put it this way: I was a college atheist who argued with religious people, and I made it. And then one day it dawned on me that I took all the zealotry that I hated about religion, you know, and I was employing that. You know, so I just stopped. I just was like, I'm not religious, and you know, who knows what I'm going through. Things, you know, it's like personal. This is actually the most I ever spoke about that. But but I was just, I came up with the concept of the patriarch while I was moving to this house. My buddy Mike, who also had a comic on Kickstarter a couple of weeks ago, I was like, I want to make a comic book that would just piss off the left. So I was like, the patriarch, and he's got the male gaze, and he's, you know, and I just started describing. And then after a while, like I sat at home and I sketched out what he would look like, you know, and I was like, I like this guy. Yeah. Like, and then I realized making a character out of spite, you know, maybe you'll get like a momentary success or whatever, but for lasting quality, you have to make, for lasting strength, you have to make a character that has quality that you actually fell in love. And I fell in love with the character. Right. And I made up this whole, you know, supporting cast about him and everything like that. So again, he's fully male. Yeah. He is everything. Coop, there's probably stuff about him you don't know yet, but he's white. He's straight. He doesn't cheat on his wife. He loves his wife. He wants to get home to his wife every day. His wife is a traditional wife. She stays home. She homeschools the kids. They homestead. They live on a farm. You know, he uses his powers to. So he's rural. He's not urban. He's rural. So yeah, that's another thing they hate. He hunts his own food. He farms his own food. Yeah. He digs his own wells, which is easy when you got powers. Right. And that's going to be a problem because the kids are growing up and they're going to be like, Dad, I want to leave. You know, how long can you protect? You can protect the world, but could you protect your kid? You know what I mean? Sooner or later, they have to go. Otherwise, you're a bad dad. So that's going to be a problem in the future. But everything about, like I said, he homeschools, he homesteads. And because of his senses, he could scan it. Like he'll find like sunken treasure. So he's wealthy. He doesn't pay taxes. You know what I mean? Right. You know what I mean? I mean, he does when he buys stuff, but he'll get gold and, you know, trade it in for goods and things like that. So like he's the guy that his family will show up at the supermarket, just put gold coins on them, and you know, like the barter system in the old days. So education without values, as useful as it is, seems rather to make men a more clever devil. Yep. Great C.S. Lewis quote. Psychically and very unendowed. That's okay, Wolfier. I like you anyway, buddy. But well, one thing about, you know, I've got a character very similar to yours in that at one point he was held up as a paragon. You know, he was like, when people were like trying to find their true north, this was the guy who's the needle, and it was like that for generations, and people grew up, you know, everything was all right with the world as long as this guy was there, and I see a lot of similarities between our characters. Yeah, I could see the patriarch hanging out with Ironside, you know, and getting along. But you know, where my guy basically was kind of like supplanted and replaced and kind of marginalized. Your guy obviously is looks like he's going to stay on top for, you know. Yeah. But in the first issue, you know, maybe I played it safe. I don't know, but I didn't want to start at the beginning because I didn't know how far I would get to go. Crowdfunding is the Wild West at this point. So it is. He's already a superhero for like 20 years at this point. You know, he's experienced. He's got the great. And then the next issue is kind of like his next adventure. But then the third issue, I'm going to actually do his origin. So you'll see him like skinny. You know, he's not going to be ripped yet and everything like that. And his wife, you know, whatever. I'm almost giving away too many details. But so by the time when we meet the patriarch, he's already I hate when I say Superman because people get the wrong idea, but
Yeah.
he's a super popular, well respected, experienced superhero.
Mhm.
And if I'm putting his role playing stats on the back of the trading card, I'm actually working on it this weekend. So the first 2 cards got unlocked. So you're gonna see his highest stat is charisma.
Mhm.
If does that mean anything to you, Coop? Have you ever played Dungeons and Dragons?
Yes, I have. Charisma just means his way to charm his get his way by
Yeah, well, if you
force
play
of
Dungeons and Dragons,
personality.
the paladin has to have a 17 or 18. So that's what I'm leaning into. He's more of a paladin. He's a good guy, you know.
Yeah.
He's smart, but he's not genius. Like I'm gonna say, if the average person's IQ, what's the average person's IQ? 100, something like that.
Thereabouts. Yeah.
His IQ is probably 120.
Okay.
You know, so he's not going to invent robot armor, but you know he's not going to. So you'll see his stats. It'll be interesting. Like, you know,
Here's a quick question for you. When you're going to play Dungeon board game, Mr. Longbox, for the late 80s?
Right over there. I got it right over there. I used to play that game. I remember specifically playing that on my porch on a rainy day. It was a very fond memory. My buddy came over.
You're sending that at the wrong guy. Trust me.
You're not a board gamer?
No, I'm talking about you in particular. Asking if you've played something.
Yeah, Dungeon was a fun game. I was fascinated with it for a long time, but I didn't have a copy until just recently. And my friend Sean had it. And I think at one point his mom just like threw away all of his kids' stuff. Yeah. And it just disappeared. So,
oh my gosh. How many times has that happened? How many, everybody I know is like, oh, well, I left it at home and then mom threw it away. I mean, how many people has that happened to? That's crazy. I asked when
will I play? Good question. You know what? Now I haven't thought about it because I got so many games, you know. My comic books is my number 1 obsession. Board games probably number 2, and then music is number 3. Yeah. So, Frank, you planted a seed in my head, and when seeds get planted in my head, I have to act on them. So, get back to it's only a matter of time now. There you go. But
there you go.
Yeah, this weekend I'm booked with my wife's thing. This is her weekend.
Oh well, there you go. One thing that I think people find appealing about you, and I know this embarrasses you talking about yourself.
Yeah.
But I think the thing that people find most appealing about you is that you're basically a human time capsule. When I first started interacting with you, I'm like, this is like the comic book shop nerd that at the corner. This is the guy that, you'd walk through the door and you're like, hey, you have you heard of this character? Yeah, it's over there in that box there, and it's something very like throwback about that, in that, used to there were geeks and then there was the geek, okay? And everybody knew who the geek was, Everybody knew who the dungeon master was going to be, or the.
I was always the dungeon master. I don't think I've actually played as a player in probably 20 years.
Yeah, I think it's. I think basically that's your appeal. So when I saw this comic book come out, I was like, this is the personification of that. This is somebody who, the people who do the best stuff are the people who have an encyclopedic knowledge. The shallow stuff, the ephemeral stuff that's not going to last, are usually done by people who have very limited knowledge. J.R.R. Tolkien made like 5 different languages from scratch.
Yeah.
For Middle Earth. Okay. People who like make stuff that's going to have some impact, that's going to have some kind of staying power, are the ones who know what they're talking about, and not only know the only way to know the future, and the only way to know where we're headed is if you know where we've been.
That's why the progressives are tear down statues and using presentism to cancel George Washington and Winston Churchill and all these.
Well, you wind up chasing your own tail.
Well, yeah,
you wind up basically right back where you started. You're making the same mistakes all over again in the same way. And the only people that can truly progress, the only true progressives, are those who know the past, know where we've been, know the mistakes we made, how we got there, and so that way when they know what the right turn is coming up.
Yeah, I think that we're entering into the French Revolution. We got like celebrities, and we got the comic book people. Alex de Campi acting like Marat, just getting people canceled. Marat didn't kill people. He just started the rumors, and other people, she's getting people to off themselves.
Well, and at the same time, we can see these patterns because we've been paying attention, and you have to pay attention. Ed Piscor, who we're referring to, he didn't pay attention, because if he had paid attention, he would understand that it wasn't the end of the world, that you can come back from where they put him.
Unfortunately, I didn't know him until he died. I've been in my little bubble, so it takes a lot to penetrate my force field. But once you do, I get really into it. Yeah. So this is going to sound terrible, but I don't want to know about new shows. Right. I don't want to know about new comics. I don't want to know about new YouTube, because when I do, I get obsessed about them. Yeah, I can't afford any more obsessions. So Ed Piscor, I went, I looked, and I have like X-Men Grand Design and Fantastic Four, but I didn't read them yet. And now I want to do a video on him, and I feel like that would be exploitive because I didn't really know the guy. I didn't watch, and he used kayfabe in comics, kayfabe, and I knew kayfabe was a wrestling term, and I've never been a fan of wrestling, so I was like, so I didn't. So I feel bad that I didn't. But somebody said this about Ed Piscor, he was teaching a new generation about how comics used to be done, and that's why he had to go.
Because that's why he was targeted there, definitely.
He was a tunnel to the past. So he was, he was not new comics going forward. He was comics going backwards, and he must be taken out. Yeah.
This guy says you're too likable.
Thank you. So, Zach Dan, you're very likable too. Zach Dan always has a pleasant, I have the best rock stories. Yeah. Again, that just shows you how obsessive I got. When I was into punk rock and chasing bands, I was like, we can't miss the show. We can't miss the show. We can't do that. We got to do this. I just, you don't have the energy you have when you're 25. I wish. No,
you don't. I only want to know about new indies. Is why I backed John's book.
Oh, thank you, Frost. There you go. I hope everybody's happy with the comic. I'm getting nervous. You know what I mean? The every day that's getting, because Renzo just handed in the last pages. Yeah. So it's wow. So now that the last pages are done, it's time to Shadowpunk. It's time to redo. So now I'm rewriting the script. I'm like, is this good enough? Like, because I feel like there's a lot of pressure now. When I wrote the script, I was like, I'm just writing the script. Yeah, Now I feel like people have paid money, and I got to give. And
I didn't realize this, but the stress really starts once the campaign, once you've committed to it.
Oh, tell me about it. Tell me about it.
As long as it's nebulous, as long as you're like, I got a script, or as long as you say, I got something in production, but the moment that there's money put on the cat over the barrelhead,
it does change things. It changes things.
It changes everything. It changes everything.
I couldn't sleep the first night, even though it was doing great for the first weekend. I couldn't sleep because now I'm like, oh my God, people are buying this now. Now I have an obligation. You know what I mean? Like at one point it was just, hey, I'm writing a cool script and Renzo's drawing beautiful pictures. Now, now there's expectations. This sounds arrogant. I don't mean it, but there's like other channels talking about it. Phantasmagoria made a trailer for me. And people have been so nice, and I don't want to let anybody down. And I'm working this precarious balance because I have so much world building, but I realized I can't just make world building the comic. You know what I mean? So, like, what do I leave for the next issue? So, will there be a next issue? Things like that.
Right.
All this.
Well, there's a balance there. You have to give people enough to hook them, but
Yes.
you also can't like blow your wad. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. And that's what I was going to do. My original issue number 1, a few people told me this is world building the comic. You know, it was too many characters, too much stuff happening. You know, just imagine like Crisis on Infinite Earth all stuffed into one issue. So I did the exact opposite. I pulled way back, and this is getting your toes dipped in. I'm hoping people understand.
Well, my buddy Hojo did the same thing. He like saved a lot of this world building for the second issue.
Yeah.
And
speaking of which, I got right over here. Hojo is a good guy. Mythicals is a fun book.
Yep.
You
know, he basically hooked you before he like told you a lot about the world, and that's unique to him. I haven't seen anybody do that. Now I'm wishing I did that. But anyway, I learned the same lesson. Next issue, I'll have at least a half done before I launch. Right?
Yeah, I got a lot done. You know, like I said, Renzo handed in the last pages today.
Wow.
So I just got to tinker with the script. We got Nick Axe in the chat. I just got to say, in a very real sense, this comic wouldn't happen if not for Nick Axe. His help has been invaluable. For those of you who don't know, Nick Axe is the artist for Crom the Destroyer for RJ for the Fourth Age.
Yeah,
and I've made it my life's mission to hire everybody that RJ hires and make them work on my book. Now,
that's not a bad move. That's not a bad move at all.
I'm joking, but that's been me teasing RJ for the Fourth. RJ for the Fourth Age was pretty much Heroinberg. If I don't know if you know Heroinberg.
I know Heroinberg, yeah.
Yeah, Heroinberg and RJ were the first two people to ever reach out to me and talk to me. You know, I was like, wow, people are starting to recognize me. And I became like RJ's sidekick, you know, and then now I'm poaching all of his talent. But Nick is a
Nick's a horse of an entirely
he's
different
a polymath.
color.
He's a true polymath. I know that word is cool and in fashion right now, but he could draw. He does computers. Nick designed my logos for my characters.
There's very few people that make me feel as stupid as Nick and Crom do. I have to be honest.
I love when they're talking. I love when Nick Crom and Nick and Crom.
But that's not them. They're not arrogant or anything. It's just the brain power, the sheer brain power.
The reason why Nick and Crom like you so much is you do the same thing. You have a genuine. I'm trying to think of the right word. You're genuinely thinking. You're thinking critical. You want to know things. If somebody says something that's contrary to what you think, you can actually see your wheels turning. You know what I mean? I think you're like an icebreaker going through you break it through the ice to get to the truth. And that's what Nick likes. And that's what Crom likes. And sometimes like they came on my channel a couple of weeks ago and they were just talking. And then they private messaged me, is everything okay? I said, no, I'm fast. I'm listening to a fascinating conversation, you know?
Yeah. Well, you just wind those guys up and let them go, you know, just try to. You just try like aim them the right
over
direction.
Here, he's been my greatest cheerleader. You know, him and Kyle.
Shadowpunk is Shadowpunk. People just have no idea what Shadowpunk does behind the scenes. Plus, he has the best book I got last year.
Yes, you recommended it, and I got it on your recommendation. And
if you watch his movie that he made alongside with the comic book, there's a movie. There's I don't think about a 5-minute movie. It's a 9-minute movie. It's a prequel to that comic. But if you watch that movie and then watch that,
Shadowpunk, send me a link to this.
Oh, it's incredible. Marcus Killer Grew, look under Shadowpunk's channel and put the. I can get it. I get it real quick.
I got Marcus and Haldir as great moderators over my channel.
Yeah. Well, that's nice to definitely nice to have moderators. I've got it bookmarked. Hold on one second. I'll get it in there. But
somebody's asked. I was scrolling up. There was a question. Do I have a scoundrel character? Who asked me that? Kirby. Do I have any scout? The answer is yes. And it's funny because I have. I don't know when I'll be able to put them in, but I have a team of children's superheroes. They're going to be called the Rascals.
Right.
And the leader is a like a 14-year-old girl named Army Brat, and she's gonna be like a little girl who grew up on army bases with bazookas, and she knows everything. You know, they'll commandeer a tank. She's kind of a scoundrel. But if you're talking about like a spacefaring guy like Han Solo, geez, I can't think of it. Yes, and I don't want to reveal his name because it's too good of a name and people will steal it. So
there you go. Yeah. One of my favorite names of one of my characters is I've got a bad guy named Osmosis. And but it sounds goofy, but he actually steals people's powers. But if you see him with somebody's power, that means they're dead.
Oh,
that's
okay.
That's the only way he can steal the power. So.
Like osmosis, like he could move water and part water and control water.
No, it's osmosis. He basically absorbs people's powers. But
there you go. Oh, Shadow
he
Punk.
basically steals part of their soul to do it. So scoundrel, I like that. Han Solo, yeah.
My friend, my comic is inspired by my love of the Villains Vigilantes role playing game, and my friend Lance had a character called the Switcheroo. Lance always made up characters that just made it impossible for me to plan an adventure. But the Switcheroo's powers was he could switch your powers around. So the bad guy would come, he would steal the bad guy's power, and then he would give the bad guy's weakness to the other bad guy, and and he would switch everything around. But the only bad thing is, I made up this house rule that powers cause insanity. So every time he switched the powers around, he would have to make a savers. So he kind of went nuts after a while. But I love the switcheroo. He basically stole all the cool powers and dumped his weaknesses off to everybody else.
Right. Well, sometimes villains are a lot more fun to write than the hero is. Or something like, I guess there's something, shall we say, cathartic about writing somebody who's like, just has no, okay, that should do it, but has like no compunctions, has no limits to what they'll do, and in some way, shape, or form, it allows your id to take a walk,
Yeah,
and that's always a lot more fun. The hero. The thing about I find when I write Ironsides, I don't know if you find this with the Patriarch, is that he like humbles me and wants me to be a better person, because of he's the character of the guy is like he's so true blue in a lot of ways, and so determined and so brave and so courageous and so he embodies these things that we want to be. It's like he's my aspirations to be a better man, and to have that when I write him, because as a writer I don't inhabit my characters. Okay, inhabiting your characters is cheap and it's lazy. Writing characters that are maybe that are outside of you, that are like different from you enough that Jack
Kirby wasn't the Silver Surfer or Doctor Doom,
right? Right.
And so people ask me, "Is the Patriarch your self-insert?" I'm like, "I wish."
Yeah, you like to have those 6-pack abs.
Is he a chubby guy sitting in a basement reading comics? No, then he's not my self-insert.
There you go. It's like Glenn O'Leary said. We don't care about you. We don't want you as Captain America. We want Steve Rogers as Captain America. He's absolutely right about that. Anyway, Switcheroo. That's a great name and power. Yeah. I've been posting pages from a story I drew years ago called Johnny Impossible. He can use one power at a time, but he doesn't know which power it will be. I have a character. Yeah, I have a character named Switch. I love her because she's like SJW Senator's daughter. And so she's vapid and she's flighty. But when she's not paying attention, she's heroic. When she's just acting on instinct, she's actually heroic. But her power, the reason she's called Switch is she can either boost your power or switch it off.
Ooh.
But she can't control which. And so she'll either make you more powerful than you are initially, or she'll kill your power.
Yeah, I made up a character, a bad guy called Null, Null, and his symbol was the circle with the red line through it. And he just wore a black costume, and he wore a black featureless. So he just looked like a silhouette with like a red circle over you.
Oh, wow.
And his power was you lost your powers. Yeah. Oh my God, did the players hate him? Oh my God. You had to make a save every couple of rounds to get your powers back. But
you're that kind of dungeon master. Oh, so you're one of those.
But that it shows how super and clever you could be. So when my friend Paul is, if you know the term hack and smash, he just kicked down the door, kill the orc, take the treasure. He doesn't care about the logic of the story. He just wants to level up. So he plays that way with superheroes too. So like, I have like when you make it up a character, you have a finagle factor, so you could dump one power to double it. He always makes the most powerful characters, but he doesn't play with us that often. So it's kind of like the Avengers back in the 70s and 80s when Thor would show up every 6 issues, smash everybody, and then leave. It's cool. But my friend Jan, he would take the most interesting powers. So they were both first level. Jan's character had 3 hit points. A superhero, and Paul's character had 360 hit points at first level, so
right.
But it was, but so I made Null, and that he just took away your power, and they were just like, now they had to be clever. All of a sudden, the guy with the gun was a real threat. It made I thought an exciting adventure. But
one thing about the best kind of like heroic characters are ones that have like glaring weakness or a drawback.
Like I hate Green Lantern's powers. Weakness is yellow.
I liked it when they changed that to be willpower. Right. I liked it when they changed it to willpower.
I mean, as much as I love Superman, Kryptonite. Like Kryptonite is a cool weakness if it's rare and it's exciting. Now, like everybody and their brother has access to Kryptonite, and then and it's stupid. I always said if Lex Luthor pulls out the ring with Kryptonite, Superman just flies up into the air and shoots heat vision at it from a mile away at the ring.
Well, at a certain point, it's a dead universe. You think there'd be a finite, and
that's another thing John Byrne did is he figured it wasn't actually the rock, it was the radiations. So then Lex Luthor started to copy the radiations, which I thought was brilliant, And then
John Byrne. So
John Byrne's one of my favorite. X-Men's Leech,
X-Men's Leech was X-Men's. He's such a sweet kid.
The players would take out Leech right away because nobody wants to lose their powers.
Leech is he's part of one of the best comic books I've ever read. The one that inspired me. It's Power Pack when they went down in the Mutant Massacre tunnels. They went down to save Leech, and then there's a scene where Leech finds out that his adopted mama Annabelle was killed, and that gets me every time. It gets me every time.
That was Louise Simonson writing it, right?
Louise Simonson, Wheezy Simonson, genius.
We didn't exist because there was no women in comics before 2016.
Of course, right.
So what you were saying about writing Ironsides? That's how I feel about Superman. Superman is the father figure in the fact that he's not really the first, but he's the first superhero. He's the most popular superhero. When Superman shows up, you sit up in your seat. You know what I mean? Yeah. You use proper manners. You don't want to curse. You know what I mean? Because that's what he is. Dad just walked into the room, and that's
except for Batman.
Yeah, except for Batman. Batman's like Batman does it. He'll tell other people, knock it off. That's Superman. You know what I mean? Right. So but that's what I like about that. That's how Superman's supposed to be written. And I like that you said that when you're writing Ironsides, it brings out and that's what I think we're missing. I mean, exactly. I don't mean to be a jerk or anything, but like reading about Deadpool doesn't really inspire you. You just like zany and madcap. You know, Wolverine doesn't inspire you. Wolverine is just kick-ass, and I love Wolverine. You know what I mean? But I'm gonna have some bad superheroes. I hate the term anti-heroes. Either you're a good guy or you're not. You know, so I'm going to explore that around issue 3 with the.
Well, I have a theory about that pulp and noir. I've got it on the channel, and what I mean by pulp or noir is a pulp character is one that has a definitive philosophy, has beliefs that they follow, which is valued neutral. Okay, so you can have a villain that's a pulp character, by my definition.
Yeah, like Chu.
Right, but the thing about it is when you have that character that's a paragon, or the character that has that belief in themselves and belief in truth, justice, and the American way. When you have that allows you to write everybody else out in different shades. Okay. And what's happened with comic books is since they refuse to write anybody that true blue or that
right.
defined,
they don't even want to say American way anymore. Right.
But what that does is it causes everybody else, because nobody is a good person. If everybody is like anti-hero, then nobody's a hero.
Right.
And because of that, that's why going back to that, back to that template that worked, where you knew who the good guy was, you knew this guy over here. Every time that something happened, you knew how he's going to respond. The Elite versus Superman. Have you ever seen that?
Yeah.
Okay, and these anti-heroes and and morally gray characters, and they thought they pushed, but the moment that they thought they pushed Superman to the breaking point, they're all like terrified. They thought he was going to kill them, and they're all like running scared, right? And then at the end of it, it turns out that he didn't kill any of them. It was all like ledger domain, to get close enough to disable this guy. But the thing about it is it's like the reason why I am not you is because I can't be you.
Right.
Because if I am you, then there's no hope for anybody.
Right.
And
there was a Jerry Ordway comic, during the Superman reboot, so, John Byrne was doing Superman and Jerry Ordway was doing Adventures of Superman. And they had a Brainiac in it. And at this point, Brainiac was a human prestidigitator, mentalist kind of guy. And he was using his mental energy to try to get Superman to do bad things. And then Superman just grabbed him.
Right.
And he's flying this wonderful old-fashioned Jerry Ordway artwork. And he's flying, and you can see like the Eiffel Tower in the background, the pyramids. It just shows you how fast Superman's flying. And he goes, you were trying to get into my mind and break my will. He goes, do you know you know who I am? I'm Superman. Yeah. Because when I wake up in the morning, my first thought is I could take over the world and nobody can stop me. He goes, you know what stops me from doing that? The will of Superman. He goes, and you almost tampered with the will of Superman. And then he just throws Brainiac. I said Metallo. Brainiac into the jail, and he slams it shut. And I never stopped thinking about that. It just showed you like the power of this being who chooses to do good. And that's why I love Kingdom Come. And I wonder how much of Kingdom Come is really Alex Ross and Mark Waid just came in after the fact and did some dialogue.
I think when you look at Marvel's, Alex Ross does a lot more writing than he.
Yes, that's what because I don't want to give Mark Waid a lot of credit, but I have to. He's the writer. Yeah. Mark Waid is a good comic book writer. He's a jerk, but he's. And that's
Sal Buscema's a decent writer, but I really think Alex Ross wrote most of the Marvels. I really do.
So, like, Superman retired and leaves, and all the children, all the other superheroes, become jerks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then Daddy has to.
They didn't have that Paragon, right?
Right. Yeah. And I thought that was wonderful. Just like kids who grow up without a dad, they become troublemakers. Statistics bear that out.
When Magog became like their Paragon, Magog didn't have the moral, the moral turpitude to be that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that concept of Superman, and that's why I made the patriarch a cape guy, with the cape and everything like that, because he's modeled after Superman. But believe me, his power level, his powers, I mean, it's no secret anymore because the trading card's coming out and I'm going to have his powers on the back of the card. So he's telekinetic and psychic so he's more Jean Grey than Superman, but I also got that idea from John Byrne that Superman emits a force field to lift the plane. So, if he picks up a car, he's really telekinetically, but he works out, he's buff and he's
right.
But,
well, see, Ironside's true ability is he manipulates gravity.
Okay.
And he happens to be denser than normal because of his gravity field that's around him all the time, which is why he can lift stuff. Yeah. So that's the thing.
Didn't Marv Wolfman write that? Maybe he did. I just remember Jerry Ordway drew it, but I'm drawing a blank on who drew it. The panel of Superman pulling the giant plow and one. Yeah, I love that. That's how Byrne explains the Gladiator. Yeah. I'm a product of the comics that I read. Yeah, and I read some wonderful comics, and
that's why I'm excited to get your book. Is because I want to see what that produces, all that comic knowledge, all that shoving all that into a brain, and what comes out the other end is got to be something interesting.
Well, issue number 1 is dipping your toes in. It's slight world building. You know what I mean? It gives you issue number 2. There's 2 stories. It's a flip book. So it's going to be the patriarch, because I realized if I don't have the patriarch, people are going to get mad. You know what I mean?
Right.
I spent a year hyping up the patriarch. People started drawing fan art of him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he's going to be my flagship character. So there's a full, complete patriarch story in issue number 2.
Right.
You flip the comic over, that's going to be a different character. So issue number 2 is Mary Sue. And Mary Sue she's perfect, and that is going to explain a lot about how superpowers work and where superpowers come from. So it's the origin of. It's funny because I didn't want to do the origin of the patriarch in issue number 1, but I'm doing the origin of Mary Sue because the whole purpose of that story is to explain where superpowers come from, a setup of the world, drop some, I hope, interesting things that come a couple of issues down the road. You can be like, oh, okay, that's why that happened. And then issue number 3 was going to have a character that I was going to call the Raven, who was going to be a Batman character.
Yeah.
And then a lot of people kept telling me there's too many people named Raven. I was like, yeah, but none of them are like a Batman. There's Raven from the Titans but you know what? I listen, so I don't want to tell you what he's going to be called, but I reimagine this character. I could use the same script. I got to change a few things, but it's better. I listen to criticism, and this comic is going to get better. I always talk about, I bounce ideas off of Brian Bow and Fabrizio Aiello, and they just said, yeah, that's so much better. Yeah. That is so much better. So there you go. See, living proof, Mr. July. If you listen to some criticism, it can actually help you.
Right.
Nick gives me criticism. He tells me I should wear a mask when I go live and cover my ugly face. But I don't listen to all criticism.
Well, let me show you this right quick. I there you go. This right here.
Wow.
I
make that bigger for my old man eyes.
All right. Let me see if I can get it bigger right quick.
Hit that little square on the bottom that you know what I mean. So it'll be the only thing.
Oh yeah. Okay. Whoop! It didn't do anything.
Because I like your designs. Like, to me, they follow the superhero roles. The costumes kind of reflect what they do. Like I'm looking at Ironside's there in the middle. He's got the red, white, and blue. So he's a good guy. He's patriotic. He's a leader. He has military experience. I'm getting all of that, even if I didn't know what his name was, just from the costume. Yeah, exactly.
Well, one thing about it though, that I was setting this up for somebody today to kind of draw this, and some of the most interesting people. Like, there's Switch there with the purple hair, and this is Violet.
It's funny that you have that like purple and blue scheme, because I forget who said it, but they said like purple and green are chaotic colors.
Right.
and she switches people around. That's I don't know if you plan that, but that works.
Well, yeah, she either cancels your powers or she boosts you, but she can't control it.
Yeah, that's chaos. Yeah.
Yeah, so she's definitely a chaos agent. But I mean, what you see here is what I was going for is kind of like remember like what X-Men used to be. The way X-Men used to be was like just there's like such a diversity there. You had your Colossus with the metal skin, you had Nightcrawler, the blue skin, and everybody had their thing, but you could tell there was a visual language there.
Yeah.
And that's what I was trying to create.
And Dave Cockrum does not get the credit he deserves for designing, because Dave Cockrum designed the new X-Men. He also designed what I consider the classic Legion of Superhero costumes. I think he also designed the Imperial Guard. Just great costume designs.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I'm not a fan of all of the extraneous lines and pockets and pouches and stuff. That's a military uniform. If superheroes started dressing in military style, to me that sends out subtle fascist, scary.
Right.
But like a simple and elegant, like no pockets, it almost shows like I got nothing up my sleeves. You know what I mean? Batman could have the utility belt because he is sneaky and and shadowy and subterfuge is his weapon. But if Superman shows up with pockets and it doesn't make sense. Who inked the Nightcrawler limited series? I don't know. I'm sure Marcus Kellergrew knows. I don't know. And which one? Are we talking about the original one when he was a pirate?
Right. Well,
Captain America's military boots. Yeah, I like the swashbuckler boots.
Yeah.
I liked Kirby subtly hinted that it was chainmail, and then later on you had artists just drawing like John Cassaday when he draws it literally is chainmail.
Yeah,
I don't know. I knew it was chainmail without all of the little lines, but I didn't need to see every lace in every boot in Captain America's boot.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's something. I think over rendering is a problem a lot of artists have these days. Superman doesn't conquer the world because it wouldn't sell comics. I guess otherwise he'd be converting with harem Earth women.
I would say this: if DC all of a sudden put out a Superman conquers the world, it would sell. But that would be it. It would be a spike. And that's one of the things that modern comics are doing is they're going for the short sell. They're not going for the slow, long burn. I'm trying to make a comic that'll be around.
Hey, Mrs. Good Stuff.
Hey, Mrs. Good Stuff. How you doing? I'm trying. So, I like you said, I didn't want to put everything in issue number 1 and then what?
Right.
And then
what? Well, one thing I wanted to focus on tonight, and we've been focusing on it all along, is the fact that the way forward is going back.
Yeah.
And I think in a lot of ways, you see music now, and it's like the people that are really on the cutting edge, the people that are really making good music right now, but you'll find that they like went back to the blues, went back to jazz, or went back to some older form.
I agree.
To form what they're doing now. Even punk. The best punk is stuff that goes back to that first attitude, which is what punk was all about.
You're absolutely right. We are in a transitional period right now.
Yeah.
We are on a pivot right now. We could go in vast different directions. What you said about punk was really just rock and roll. Back in 1977, the Ramones and all those punk bands, and even the Sex Pistols, that was just rock and roll. It was rock and roll, faster and more aggressive, but it was
Buddy Holly.
Right.
It's Buddy Holly. And
Buddy Holly really fast. The Ramones were, 3 chords, garage, Bill Haley in the Comets, that simple jazz progression, just fast and aggressive. Because think about it. There was all the synthesizer disco music and then boom, reset. And then it happened with movies. We went back to a Western phase for look at right now. What's popular? Dune came out in the 90s.
Yeah.
Star Wars came out in the 70s. Superhero movies that they've been around since the 60s.
Dune was like that first movie was in the 80s actually.
Yeah, there you go. We are, and everything is a reboot.
Yeah.
Everything is a reimagining.
But there's a difference between rebooting and honoring.
Absolutely.
And I mean,
what I'm saying right now, I forget who it was. I think it was Adam Miller said the end of an era is when all of the illusions are dispelled.
Yeah.
So right now, what do we have? What do we have? Everything.
Right.
Everybody's pissed off. So I think this could be dangerous. We could have like a next golden age of like, oh, all these comics are really good. All these movies are so good. Or we could just, go off the cliff and everything's just shit,
Well, I think honestly, and this is my take. This is my opinions are not necessarily John's opinions.
Right.
So
we're individuals.
So take it as this. But I think we need to get away from the ex-pros. The ex-mainstream pros. I think we need to get away from that model of looking to them for leadership. I think we need to start looking at them as just other creators. Because we have a superstar culture. And when you get a superstar culture...
it becomes cult of personality. I agree with you.
And so where they go is where everybody thinks we have to go, and it's not.
Well, that's why I've been putting on Twitter anything comic book related. I say it's about comics.
Yeah, it's about comics.
If you like me, that's great. Somebody said I was likable, Zach Tan. But I understand I'm an unproven guy, and if you buy my comic book, it's because you like me or you like Renzo's art. But fine. But it's about the comic,
Uh-huh.
And I want to make the comic book as big as possible. And I don't want to get an ego. People keep asking me, and Cooper, when your comic comes out, it's about the comic.
Right.
If you like Cooper, that's nice too. I like Cooper, but like people keep trying to do gotcha with me. Do you think so-and-so's comic is going to be good? And they know they want me to say it's going to suck.
Yeah.
And I say, well, it's not out yet. I hope it's good. Why would I be rooting for a bad comic? A bad person can make a good comic. And I just mentioned before, Mark Waid, I think is a terrible person, but he makes great comics. What am I gonna, So I agree with Cooper. And it's not the comic creator. It's the comic. And paradoxically, I worship Jack Kirby.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But you know what I mean.
Right.
But I can admit that Jack put out some bad comics.
Well, yeah, but it's like Shadowpunk. We talked a little bit about him. He spent years on this 9-minute movie, and quietly putting it together, 3D animation, and it's 3D animated.
Yeah,
I don't know if I told you that.
Yeah.
And this is complete. Like, it's the backstory. There's, you don't know that it has any attachment to the book until almost the last panel. And all you know is like it's like this backstory. How did this little girl wind up on her own in Detroit? And it kind of this post-apocalyptic Detroit that like makes me want to take a tetanus shot when I read it. But you don't.
Yeah, there's a lot of rust in it. That's funny.
A lot of rust and sharp edges. But this little girl, she's the little girl. She's like wearing these goofy glasses that she found. She's being a little girl, and at the same time, it's like it's horrible background. And there's just like this little sweet, like, happiness in this little world that she still holds in her heart. And it's. But he did this, and he has no mainstream background. He has never worked on a mainstream book art-wise, but that book is unique in the way it looks and the way it's drawn. He has no mainstream coloring, but this book
it's got a weird palette that
he has a distinctive palette that he came up with, and it works for that book. And he did this 9-minute movie on his own, and this book and that trailer together makes the best package that I have seen.
Watch the trailer now. Yeah. Because you recommended the comic. I got it on your recommendation. I really liked it.
Yeah, you read the book after you watch that movie, that 9-minute movie.
I got to reread comics. What, crazy?
There you go. Well, yeah, just yeah. But the bottom line is this is a guy who was never in the mainstream, and his comic didn't make 7,000, but that was the best comic that I got out of all of them, including these mainstream guys. And I got one from Carl O'Rowe called Sunsworn, and that the guy kind of went underground and was gone for a while. Then he comes back with this comic, and it's the best drawn thing that I've gotten from CG entirely, and that includes Ethan. And so these are people that never worked in the mainstream but love comics,
Right.
And did the best job that they could, and they have talent that the mainstream never saw. But these are the guys that are making these books that don't have the pedigree, but they've got the passion. And so all the people that excite me the most are not these ex-mainstream pros. Hey, worship at their altar if you want, and get all the products they put out if you're a fan of them, because some of these guys are awesome. I'm a big fan of a lot of these guys, and I get their products too. But don't miss the forest for the trees, okay?
About comics.
It's about comics, and yes, the biggest guy in this section, the guy with the biggest numbers, he's put out books that are just quite frankly subpar. And there's no problem with saying that, okay? But everybody just keeps going back to the number that he made. And the number is not the point. The product is the point. What was the comic? Was it good? Was the comic good? Is it moving it forward? Are we moving the ball forward?
And when he got criticized on it, I really think if he just said, I hear you, and I let my enthusiasm get, but I hired Mike Barron, and I hired this guy, and I hired this guy. We're gonna work it all out. The next issue, I think he would be golden right now, because like I said, I got criticism. My comic didn't even come out yet. I changed two major things about it, and I think it worked. When I put out my comic, if I hear the same criticism by a bunch of people, I'll be like, what? I'm too close to this. Maybe.
Right.
So nobody's above criticism. Criticism.
No.
It's what's branding by fire, baptism of fire kind of thing. It tempers it tempers the steel, but then they'll get also. There's some people that are just going to be haters. I understand that too.
Well, I think honestly, because of the people that are hating just to hate, that it all looks like the same thing. But honestly, when I don't back a book because I don't see a writer or an editor or any kind of writing knowledge, because I know what I'm going to get, and because you have to write enough bad pages to get to the good page, just like an artist has to draw.
Bad pages.
So there you go. There you go. You have to go through that process. There's no shortcut. There's no shortcuts. And I see people, when all of these artists, these mainstream guys left the mainstream, and they're like declaring, we don't need writers. We can write our own stuff.
Yeah. Big mistake.
Yeah. And then you get the book and you're like, well, actually, the reason I started this channel was because I was getting so many bad books because these people were taking that advice that anybody can write. And you know what? Anybody can write given time.
Anybody could write. Anybody could draw. Anybody could be a quarterback. But are you any good?
Exactly.
I could be a quarterback. I could be the world's worst quarterback, but I could be a quarterback. That's one of my pet peeves about Harry Potter is it's racism. You have to be born into the magical family. I hate it. You have to be born into being a Jedi. What,
Right.
In my book, anybody could be a wizard. It's just training. There
you go. John Kate take credit, says we still ending all his stories with Elven orgies.
There you go. He ruined another one of my comics. That was the last page on issue 1 to 37, the Elven orgy.
Seriously, you just
thanks a lot, Nick.
Spoilers. Come on now.
Well, you know what? Guys, you have I'm taking criticism. It's going to be dwarven orgies from now on.
Dwarven. There you go.
And everybody has a beard, even the women.
It's going to be beards. It's going to be beards everywhere. There you go. Beards with beards. There you go. Anyway, Correction, I ruined all your comics. All right. Anyway,
Again, Nick has been immeasurably helpful for my comic.
yeah.
Just today, I'm not going to go into the details, but I suffered a major setback today. Reached out to Nick. He calmed me down, focused me, and he offered a million solutions. And of course, they were all stupid because they came from Nick, but he helped.
There you go. There you go. 70s beard. There you go. Well, I don't want to keep you too much longer here, but
yeah, I gotta talk at 9 o'clock.
There you go.
Rolling, man.
Well, but honestly, I think I when I see somebody like doing something that I think is like on the cutting edge, and it seems like, why would somebody going back to a golden age comic book style and a classic hero type be cutting edge? It's because we've been so into the woods so long that anybody that's pointing back towards the road that we need to be on,
it's a life raft. I want to make again, there has to be, I like it when there's a good guy. I like it when there's somebody to cheer for. It's wholesome in the fact that it's just not wallowing in self-misery. There's going to be issue number 3. If it goes the way I want it to be, it's going to be like brutally violent, because that's the point of the comic. Like, kind of like a commentary on like image and stuff like that. But it has a point. But I want there to be a good guy, a good family. Like there is something to fight for. The villains are going to be nasty sons of bitches, but he wants to go home to his beautiful wife, to his 7 children, to the farm, to this wholesome lifestyle.
So he's like Odysseus, right?
Yeah, Good point. I didn't even think of that, but you're absolutely right. Yeah, it's the Odyssey. Every day is the Odyssey with him. Yeah, and issue 2, I'm rewriting something because I had a good idea. It's going to show it's going to start with him home. You know what I mean? Like with the family, and then I got to leave. You
got to establish what he's trying to get back to.
Yeah, like you don't see in the first issue, you don't see much of the family. So I think it would be he's going home in the first issue. In the second issue, he's going to start off home and go off and do stuff. There you
go. So that's a preview of coming attractions with Heroic Tales. It's available on Fun My Comic. It is pinned to my chat on my channel. But Marcus has been seeding it and
it's doing pretty good. Like I said, it's got a couple of weeks left. And then I'm gonna go do Kickstarter and Indiegogo, and I'm gonna have exclusive covers for each site. So I'm gonna be on the 3 platforms. Yeah. And each platform is gonna have its own unique cover.
Well, I'm not sure what this is about. You still haven't eaten glass. Don't knock it.
Oh, I asked him for help. He told me to eat glass. So,
okay.
Me and Nick have one of those. Right. Every time I reach out to Nick, we got to insult each other 6 or 7 times before we actually start the conversation.
That's bro. That's a bro for you.
Kevin was my roommate in Albuquerque when I was in college.
Oh, right.
We used to, the glory days of Villains and Vigilantes. Every Sunday we would have. I think we were up to like 7 people.
Wow.
At one point, we had these couches. It was like a fire pit inside the house.
Yeah.
And we would all chip in, and one of us would run out and get as many cheeseburgers as possible or as many tacos as possible.
Right.
And we would just sit all day long. And then I started dating this woman who runs a comic book store out in Albuquerque, and she was also a chef. She was owned a comic book store and a chef. And she said, "Why don't you just give me that money and I'll cook you real meals?"
Right.
So, we would give her the money that we would throw in for fast food.
So there might have been some ulterior motives with that relationship, obviously.
She was gorgeous too. So there you go.
Okay.
She would make like full on meals. Like we would have catered role playing games on Sunday, and she played. So Kevin remembers those days.
There you go. Well,
that's a character called the Fighting Spirit, who may or may not.
That's pure storytelling, though. That's pure storytelling. If anybody wants to know where you got your storytelling ability from, being a dungeon master or you know.
When
that's
anybody who
storytelling.
doesn't understand role playing games asks me what it is, I basically say it's interactive storytelling.
Interactive storytelling. Choose your own adventure.
Yeah.
You know, that's what everybody really wants. They just want a story. They don't want a sermon. They don't want a
I'm not going to
screed. Yeah, they don't. They just want a story. They want you to take characters that have come to you out of the ether, and take you on the journey with them. That's what they want. And anything that gets us back to that, anything that gets us back to the future, that's what we need to do.
The patriarch. It's no secret that he leans conservative.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not because I felt that fit that character. I have a character, a superhero, a Superman type called the Peacekeeper who works for the UN. Mm-hmm. He's loyal to, and he tends to be more on the left. And I'm going to write him as true to that character. He's not going to be a straw man. He's actually going to be a good guy with different beliefs. So they're going to come to odds. But I'm not going to make him the jerk with the blue hair, screaming and yelling with Trump derangement syndrome just because he has different politics. I want to try. So. Right. I want to experiment with both sides of politics, but I want both of them to be actual good guys.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Green Arrow, you don't get more left in Green Arrow, but he was a compelling character that I could follow.
I always thought that was funny that Green Arrow was the liberal superhero who then shot people with arrows and killed them. And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. The longbow hunters, I just find this guy who stalks the woods, shoots people with arrows, killing them is the liberal progressive hero. All
right.
It shows you how things change over.
Well, since I don't have access to your trailer, I made this earlier, so I'm gonna play this.
Oh, cool.
I'm gonna play this before we go out. So.
Oh, cool.
This is it. This is the answer. It says here that a bolt of lightning is going to strike the clock tower precisely 10:04 p.m. next Saturday night. If we could somehow harness this lightning, channel it into the flux capacitor, it just might work. Next Saturday night, we're sending you back to the future.
Oh,
all right.
Caught me eating a French fry. I thought.
No problem. Anyway, thank you all for coming. Thank you, John. For
you always have good talks.
Yeah, enjoy it always. Thank you all for for the fluffiest chat in all the YouTubes, what I always call it, and John's chat, whatever John calls his chat, for showing up tonight. And get Heroic Tales if you haven't. It went over 7,000, I think.
No, 4,000. Heroic Tales
4,000
right now. Yeah,
4,000. I'm sorry. Yeah. It was like 4,009. That's right. When I last checked. So yeah, get that. It's on Fun My Comic, the best little local comic book shop on the net.
Yep.
Make sure
super helpful guy.
Yeah.
He loves comics. He lives comics. He's one of us.
It's Fun My Comic. It's not fun everything else. So check out.
It's not shadow ban My Comic.
No. Or gouge a tip out of people every time they check out. So check that out. It's over Fun My Comic, and while you're there, check the virtual shelves. Also, if you happen to see a community service, Book One Preambles, check it out. I think you'll like to back it too. But anyway, there you go. Anyway, that's been Koepp for Telepathic Bunny Comics. We will see you next rabbit hole, and bye everybody.
Bye-bye.
Have a good one.
Thanks, Ed.